Welcome back. You're watching Business Morning on Channels Television. On the program today, we're looking at the economics of the festive season. Of course, we know that there's a tendency for lots of spending and buying at this time, and we're going to be looking at what you should be looking out for to ensure that you do not have a financial hangover after the festivities. Promises to be an interesting conversation. I'll be having this conversation with an economist who is also a business development consultant, Mr. Paul Igbinoba. Mr. Igbinoba, thank you so much for coming out today.
Good morning. Thank you.
Well, it's pre-Christmas. Let's start from there. Pre-Christmas, the federal government talked about implementing austerity measures. We know that the Central Bank of Nigeria also took some monetary policy actions, the devaluation of the naira, increase in interest rate, and benchmark, the increase, of course, on the CR for private sector deposits. Now, how much of this actually affected the price of commodities and the enthusiasm of holiday shoppers?
I think it's remarkable to note that the developments in the economy, I mean, the major developments in the macroeconomy, the exchange rate devaluation, the free fall in oil price, have not really impacted in any significant way on local prices. For example, it's called that food prices are stable. The reason basically is because about 12 million tons of food was produced, which the government program in food production is actually working. So for that reason, prices are stable. Certainly, at the Christmas season, you expect that it's normal. There'll be some increase in prices. That is normal. But generally, food prices are stable. That's because much of the food we consume are produced locally. But that's not to say that we don't import. We still import food because you discovered that from between 2009 and 2013, in 2009 we were spending about 1.1 trillion naira on food import. That's about 634 billion, 6.34, so they're about $1 billion. But that has reduced to about $650 billion. I'm sorry, 650 billion naira in 2013. And the difference between 2009 and 2013 is about 38%. So every year since 2009, we've been having about a 10% reduction in food import. So I expect that by the end of 2014, we probably have had close to 50% decline in food import compared to 2009. So, and the difference is made up by local production. So that's why the impact of the devaluation on that is not felt yet. It's not really felt on local food prices.
That's for food prices.
That's for prices.
But we had other commodities that actually sell at this particular point in time. For instance, clothes.
Yes. I mean, certainly clothes that are imported will experience some marginal price increases. Would. Okay, even from your own report, you discover that children's clothes have remained stable. So generally, generally our economy is generally diversified. Not despite the fact that we are a monoproduct in terms of export, we depend so much on oil exports for our foreign exchange, earnings. But the oil sector is just about 14% of GDP. So there's a sort of a balance in the sense that the shock in terms of impact on local prices so far but we're not too sure of what to expect in the first or second quarter of next year.
Okay, but now in terms of looking at the volume of shoppers and probably the value that will be accrued, do we have an index? Because in most of Western countries like the US and other countries, we have the Christmas price index. Now, this is like a compilation of data to show how much money is spent
on buying behavior during Christmas season.
Exactly. But so why doesn't Nigeria have a Christmas price index?
That certainly is a challenge of the National Bureau of Statistics. They really haven't developed that index yet. Probably going forward, in the next year or two, they might develop the index. But certainly, every year during Christmas time, it's normal for there to be such a quantum leap in demand, for everything: food, clothing, gifts, and all that. And you discover that even in the Nigerian economy, give items like even vegetable oil and all that, rice and all that, demand for these food items increase quite remarkably because they are not just for your own consumption, also given out as gifts. And you discover one particular vegetable oil producer in Lagos, in Lekki, has even gone to the extent of packaging their in a manner that makes it amenable to be given out as gift. So a lot of purchases are made in the food area, in clothing, in shoes, in accessories, and all that. That is normal. But as you said, we haven't developed a Christmas consumer price index yet.
Yes.
But I'm sure that the NBS will be working on that.
Yeah, that's one index they should really be looking at, because you see, it would also help to track how much of imported goods or locally made goods Nigerians consume at this particular point in time. So that also now makes it a little difficult for this next question I want to ask you. Can we say that at this particular point in time, there's a heavier consumption of imported goods or locally made goods? Look at it vis-a-vis how much we're trying to see we can grow the economy. Before, right now, what we're dealing with is somewhat stagnation of growth of small and medium scale enterprises. And this is probably the best time that we can see this particular sector, that's the SMEs, grow exponentially. Oh, yes, certainly. Well, as you know, Nigeria has been an import-dependent economy for a long time. But that has been changing gradually, or even in some regards, impressively in recent times. I mean, what we spend our money on basically is food. We import a lot of rice, a lot of wheat, sugar. That 3 or 4 major food items that we import in great amounts. No, but that should have stopped now because of the federal government's backward integration program. That is a gradual process. Like I said, in 2009, we spent 1.1 trillion naira. All right, that's over 600 billion. That's more or less $6.5 billion. Now, by the end of this year, that amount would have been halved. Okay, now that shows you the progress made thus far. But we still import so much wheat. We still import rice. So from the food angle, we still import a whole lot. But again, if you look at our accessories, our what to wear, most of them are imported materials. Our shoes, our clothing, and our cars. In fact, Nigeria is still heavily import dependent. And that is a structural problem that can be solved overnight. But again, the Nigerian Industrial Revolution Plan in the next 4 or 5 years would have addressed that issue remarkably. And now that we now want to call ourselves a non-oil economy, and now that we are forced to diversify, seriously, a whole lot of things will happen in the next few years to actually push for economic diversification, so that in the next 4 or 5 years, we'll be less import dependent.